This is episode 3 of the StayNmOcean Podcast, StayNmOcean Talk, whatever you want to call it. It feels weird still calling it a podcast. I'm recording this episode from my car while in traffic. So I'm going to pretty much just get into it. Today's, just in case if you don't know, if you haven't heard, or if you don't know me, and you're wondering who's this guy, what's this all about? My name's Kaliko. I've been a waterman, surfer, paddler, whatever you want to call it. Someone who enjoys the water for the past at least 10 years. Really specializing in stand-up paddling, all the facets of that, along with a lot of surfing, skimboarding, bodyboarding. And I'm here to just kind of share my knowledge and what I have. I've got a lot of experience with traveling and equipment and just some life stuff that I think can be found useful in this day. And today's episode is going to be a little bit more specialized. It's going to be about all my thickies, my big boys, my big girls, and the newcomers. Newcomers to the water sports that might be a little bigger, so they might be a little intimidated. So I'm gonna hop right into it and let's get started. Right off the bat, the first thing to touch on is if you are considered overweight, bigger than normal, and even if you are not quite out of shape, or if you're just generally bigger, there's not going to be equipment designed specifically for you and what you want to do. Like when I first started, I was a little smaller. I was actually probably about like 30 pounds lighter, and some of that's muscle, some of that's a little fat, you know what I'm saying? But for the most part, if you're just bigger than the average bear, you're not going to fit into those charts. Most companies will have a chart that says, if you're this much, you need to have this size board, but there's no calculator for how athletic you are. Just like how dense you are as a person. A lot of people kind of refer to I'm big boned, and I don't really think there's actually a big boned, but there is people that are just more physically inclined, and there's these outliers. Like, I consider myself someone to be somewhat of an outlier, where I'm still pretty athletic at 270, and I'm riding boards that are way under my suggested size, and I've always been able to use a bigger board in gnarlier situations where most guys are using their short board. I'm using my 9 or 10 foot, 11 foot board, and it's not a problem. And it's for us bigger users, when you're picking a board, I'm gonna just keep it to stand-up paddling right now, but you're gonna get a board that you can get on, and you want it to be a little challenging. You want to be able to, in 3 months, that's where you want to be at. You don't want to get something that's too crazy big and bulbous, and that's not gonna get you towards what you want to do. So if you're a newbie, or if you're just someone who wants to paddleboard surf, the best thing you can do is to hop onto something that is a little challenging. Stepping outside your comfort zone is going to be a big thing, especially when you start to ride waves. You don't want to be the one guy out there with a 33-inch wide board and it's 11 feet and you got all this stuff. When I've generally hopped onto stand-ups, I'm looking for something that can compete dimensions-wise with a smaller board. So if I know that I'm this big, I need at least 130 liters of flotation on a stand-up, I'm gonna make sure that it's something I can control in the surf, and something that I feel comfortable with. So I would say biggest thing when you're just picking your gear is just try out everything and go for something that's going to push yourself a little bit. And that's just for a board. For a paddle, do not skimp on a paddle. You know, the paddle is basically the engine to your paddleboard. And, you know, if you go to a shop or a website or talk to anybody smaller than you, chances are they're going to try to sell you on something that's bigger and heavier to combat your size. But for a lot of things with paddleboarding and with the ocean in general is if you can kind of educate yourself on the different type of strokes that you can do to propel yourself forward easier, and if you're staying in your zones and ranges, that's going to make the biggest difference. You know, I know guys that are 300 pounds that paddleboard really well, and their mindset is, I need a big guy, big paddle. But for the most part, you know, I've been big. I've been bigger than I am now. I've gotten to as big as like 320 at one point. But my paddle never changed because I understood the kind of my mechanics were going to be always the same. And you don't necessarily need such a wide paddle. It really just comes down to technique and kind of your knowledge and understanding of the board. So if you're just starting, obviously get something that's strong. So you're looking for something carbon, probably a little stiffer, but don't let someone talk you into like an adjustable paddle or something that's going to be something that can fail. A lot of fiberglass kind of cheapy paddles are a lot more prone to breaking and things like that. And when you're learning, you know, I know $300, $400 sounds like a lot for a paddle, but you can use those paddles a long time. And even at my size, and I've gone up and down over the last few years, I've only broken 2 paddles, and those were kind of questionable paddles anyways, but the good quality paddles I've had have lasted me the entirety of my, you know, water sports career at this point. And so that's the biggest thing for equipment is just get the right equipment and try out as much things as you can. The next biggest point would be, again, we as a bigger group of people, you're going to get kind of typecast or placed into a bubble of maybe unathletic or not capable. And that's not to say like, you know, everybody be 300 pounds and try to go and charge at the best waves and wherever you live. It's just, if you're working on yourself and you're getting in shape and you're doing things, go out into the surf and just get acquainted, you know, get familiar with your gear, get familiar with the waves and the sport. But you got to be ready for that inevitable kind of judgment and pressure, which, you know, depending on where you come from or if you have an athletic background, the bigger person normally gets chewed out a little bit. But I mean, like I said, I surf and ride waves better than most people half my size, and I've done more riding and used different equipment and sports and, you know, all those things. And you can't really let like a BMI reading, or, you know, if you don't see any, just because you don't see any other bigger guys or girls in the surf, it doesn't mean you can't. It's just that you have to want it enough to go and do it, because you're not going to see me or anybody else that's thick in the magazines. You know, it's just, you can kind of shape your you can shape your paddling style around, you know, certain people. Like growing up with all my uncles in Hawaii and Washington, everyone's a little bit bigger there, so I've had a little bit more of an idea of seeing what you can do as a bigger person. But I try to, you know, I look at Kai Lenny, Dave Kalama, Laird Hamilton, these guys. Those are the type of things I want to achieve, even though at my fittest, even if I lose 70 pounds, you know, these guys like Kai Lenny and Laird, they're still, you know, going to be about 10 to 20 pounds lighter, so their equipment's going to be different. But you can model your game and your style after people that don't necessarily look like you. So a lot of times, like in sports, If you're playing basketball, you pick a position because that person most closely represents your game. Just like Allen Iverson would never look at Shaq and try to say, like, I want to be like Shaq. But in water sports, you can. Shaq can look at AI and say, I want to dribble like him. I want to pass like him, be quick, agile. We can do all those things even as a bigger person. So the second point would be your mentality. Just have the right mentality and just attack it. Don't listen to like anybody that's telling you no, or you should be on this, should be on that. As you start to get into the sport, you'll learn what is right for you and what you're comfortable with. But to go back to the first point is just always challenge yourself with the gear. So those things work hand in hand, having the strong mentality and then just sticking to your guns. And if you want to ride, 8-foot waves, you find a way to do it. There's no blueprint. It's the Wild West. You can pick whatever you want. You can ride whatever you want to ride. And that mentality is going to help a lot when you start to branch out. Because once you start stand-up paddling, if you listen back to my first episode, you'll be able to see that you're going to want to ride. You're going to want to transition to surfing. You're going to try bodyboarding. You're going to adapt to what the ocean gives you. So just keep an open mind and keep that mentality strong. And then third, and probably one of the biggest things is when you're progressing, nothing else matters. As long as you're getting better, it doesn't matter. You could be riding the same equipment, going in the same place, and if you're having fun and you can notice yourself getting better, then it doesn't matter. There's no timeline, especially when you're a new person. If you don't have any athletic background, like I grew up playing a lot of sports, high school basketball, football, track, stuff like that. So I have a little bit more of an understanding, like body awareness and just kind of what my limits are. So I was able to apply that into sport, into surfing. But if you're coming from a place of, you work a lot, you don't really have much time, but now you have some free time, you're wanting to get into paddling, maybe you're still quarantining, you're working from home, and you have time to get out there. It's just having the fun is the best thing. You can't take yourself too seriously. And being the bigger person literally is the best thing. You can find yourself a lot of times maybe struggling at first, but with paddling, you're going to want to more so just do it and get out there, and you're gonna fall. It's inevitable. You're gonna fall. You're gonna you're gonna be kooky, but you catch it really quick. Everyone I know, actually, no matter the size, those first few times are really rough, but after that, the progression, your uphill battle it's not an uphill battle. It's really just kind of downhill in a good way. Like, you progress so quick, and if you can just make it over that little hump in the beginning, then you're going to find yourself in a great community of people. It's very inclusive, and that's not just for the athletes that are, first, second, third places, all these guys like Danny Ching, Candace Appleby, and all these other pro level people. It's the aunties, the uncles, the cousins, the lower level, the people that in the community that are just paddling. It's a great place, and no matter your size too, like I said, this is going to be more for the big people. If you've ever felt kind of left out or kind of ashamed, or you don't want to get into it, the ocean is the equalizer. You can shut a lot of people up if you can just perform on the ocean. And it's not just like, performing for a big person. It's just performing in general. If you go out and do the 6 miles, you're in the club. You've got off the couch and you've done stuff that other people aren't doing. So that's already the stepping stone right there. And I think so. The third point, if you want to wrap that third point up, is at first you're going to fail a little bit, and it's going to be a little weird. It's going to be a little awkward. But you have to just, once you get past that, you're going to find your tribe. Really, you're going to find like a great community of people You're going to find a lot of great shops that you can join. You're going to find a lot of athletes that are also cross training. So you're going to be able to easily pick up, canoeing and OC1, and you'll find yourself being really able to connect in a way that maybe, if you feel kind of on land, if you're a bigger person, you feel kind of left out. But in the ocean, like I said, it's the equalizer. So to recap, first point is to pick the right gear and don't let anybody tell you what to ride. You ride what you want and you feel comfortable with at your size. And then 2 is just your mentality. Go into it thinking that you can do it and you'll be fine. You're going to go off and you're going to feel better about yourself. You're going to lose weight. You're going to get good. And even if you're not in it to really lose weight, you're just going to, no matter like the time you put in, you're going to be healthier at the end of it. And 3 is just get over that hump, that first initial hump you're going to feel. Don't worry about it. Everyone goes through it, no matter the size, but especially for us big ones, the thickies, you just got to do it. And it's a lot easier than you think it is. I promise. And if anybody is like any bigger person, needs any help kind of finding gear, finding boards, I know a lot of places that you can go, no matter where you're at in the world. Hit me up, let me know, and we can help you out. Shoot.